Hi friends, welcome. Today I want to talk about what it means to have a fragility fracture. How is that defined and how is that used to make a diagnosis of osteoporosis, and is it really meaningful? If you're new here, I'm Dr. Lisa. I'm a physical therapist that specializes in osteoporosis exercise programs. And we like to dive into what does the nitty-gritty mean when we get a diagnosis of osteoporosis and what really is a fragility fracture. So it's defined as a fall from a standing height that results in a fracture. Well, that's a pretty broad definition and doesn't often take into account the context of what was happening. Nevertheless, if you fell from a standing height, it's considered a low trauma injury, and if it resulted in a fracture, that alone can give you the diagnosis of osteoporosis. Now, what is a low trauma fracture? Well, that's something that wouldn't ordinarily cause a fracture in someone that had normal or healthy bone. Does that mean if you're rollerblading and you are accelerating at 7 miles per hour and you fall and you fracture, you have osteoporosis? Not necessarily, but that context isn't included, and it's often very randomly assigned. If you were standing height and you fell, you get a fracture. Were you yanked by your dog or hit by a bicycle? It often isn't put into context. But if it was as simple as just losing your balance and falling and sustaining a fractured wrist or spine or hip, then odds are it was a fragility fracture. Here's the thing that you need to keep in context, however. Binkley et al. Did a very good study looking at almost 7,000 postmenopausal women that had a history of or an incident fracture, determining did they have healthy bone at that time. And the sad statistic is that of those nearly 7,000 women, only about 6% had healthy bone. So it's a pretty good estimate to say that if somebody sustains a fragility fracture that is a postmenopausal female, odds are they have a higher likelihood of having osteoporosis, and that they can, by definition, be diagnosed in that category. And what this means for you is if you sustain a fracture and no one has advised you to get a DEXA scan, you should talk to your primary care doctor and ask about assessing your bone density to determine where do you fall on that risk spectrum so that you can take action to build strength and resiliency in your body and prevent a future fracture. One of the things we know is that once you have had a fragility fracture, you have a significant increased chance of having another one, especially in the 2 years following that first fracture. And the older we get, we know the poorer our bone density becomes. So becoming strong and resilient as soon as possible is a really good plan. And preventing falls is the best way to prevent a fracture. If you found this helpful, please hit the like button. I'd love it if you'd leave me a comment and if you'd share this with others who would benefit as well. I appreciate you.